When I caught her, she broke, cried, begged. But I didn't scream. I didn't lash out or throw things, because I had already lived every ounce of that pain, long before she ever confessed. It was a Tuesday night when it finally came out. Not with drama, not with some grand confrontation. Just silence, thick and final, between two people who had already begun drifting apart. Natalie stood in front of me in the dim kitchen light, wearing the same softness she always used when she wanted something. The mascara streaks were already there, like she'd practiced this scene in her head. She probably thought the tears would buy her time, sympathy, maybe even forgiveness. But I was done giving. "You don't have to cry," I said, my voice level, my body still. "I already forgave you. I just also forgot how to care." She covered her mouth, staggered like I'd struck her. But I didn't move. Just stood there, leaning against the kitchen island, watching the show unravel like I wasn't in it anymore. Because I wasn't. I'd been gone for weeks. Not physically, but emotionally, slipping out of reach in slow, silent inches. I saw the signs, the late nights, the vague explanations, the glances at her phone she thought I didn't notice. I knew before I knew, and that's what hurt most. I used to think betrayal would feel like a fire, hot and raging. But it wasn't. It was cold. A slow freeze that turned love brittle. And when it finally cracked, there was nothing left to salvage. She whispered, "It didn't mean anything." I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I didn't care if it did. Natalie always had a talent for making her guilt look delicate. Her tears used to pull me in, used to work. But I've learned something people don't talk about enough. Some men don't explode. They just stop. I was one of them now. And the worst part for her? There's no bargaining with a man who has already mourned you and moved on in silence. The first real sign came on a Thursday night. Natalie said she had a late client meeting. She mentioned it casually, standing by the sink, rinsing a wine glass she hadn't used. Her voice was too rehearsed. Measured pauses, unnecessary details. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but something small shifted inside me. Not panic, not suspicion, just awareness. That night, I waited up. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I finally admitted to myself that I shouldn't. Her text came at 10:43 p.m. "Just wrapping up. Be home soon." No period. No kiss at the end. Natalie was meticulous with punctuation. Always added a heart or a XX or something to signal closeness. That night, it was just sterile silence in digital form. When she came home, she smelled like a stranger. Not perfume. No, Natalie was smarter than that. She smelled like someone who tried too hard not to smell like anything at all. Over the next 2 weeks, I stopped reacting and started observing. I noted the times she said she was working late. I logged the exact hours she left, the house, tracked how long she was gone, which earrings she wore. It wasn't paranoia. It was clarity. I had loved her enough to overlook shadows before, but this time I needed truth, not hope. She never noticed the second phone I used, never questioned the camera in the guest room mirror, never saw me download a GPS log of her car routes. I watched as she buried herself in her own lies, trusting my silence to mean ignorance. I hired a private investigator, not out of vengeance, but precision. I didn't want guesses. I wanted facts. Unshakable, undeniable, clinical. And he delivered. The photos weren't dramatic. No hotel sheets or sordid scenes. Just quiet moments that revealed everything. Natalie stepping into a car that wasn't mine. Her smile, wide and real, directed at a man who clearly wasn't just a co-worker. Her hand on his chest, not in lust, but in comfort. That's what gutted me. The ease, the casual familiarity. The kind of intimacy that only forms when betrayal is no longer new. I didn't confront her immediately. I waited for the silence inside me to settle fully. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. Not just from her, but from the man I used to be around her. When the night finally came, it wasn't planned. We were sitting in the living room, the TV playing something neither of us was watching. She looked beautiful in the way glass sculptures do. Delicate, cold, capable of cutting without warning. I muted the screen and said, "Where were you last Thursday?" Natalie blinked, lips parting slightly. "Work dinner," she said, almost too quickly. "With who?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She hesitated, just long enough to confirm everything. I stood up, walked to the drawer, and returned with the manila folder. Quietly, I laid the photos on the coffee table, one by one. I didn't look at her. I just watched the color drain from her face as her world began to collapse in silence. She didn't deny it, just crumpled forward, palms covering her mouth, tears spilling before words could. "Grant, please. It wasn't what you think. It just happened." I cut in, calm and still. "No, Natalie. It didn't just happen. You built it. One lie at a time." Her voice cracked as she tried to explain. "It's not real. He doesn't mean anything. I was lonely. I made a mistake." I looked at her then, really looked, and saw not the woman I loved, but the woman I no longer did. "You weren't lonely," I said, voice low. "You were ungrateful." She lunged toward me, reaching for my hands, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said, steady. "Don't touch me with those hands. I know where they've been." She broke then, completely. Collapsed to her knees, sobbing, trying to clutch at any last shred of dignity or hope. But there was nothing left to hold on to. The living room was silent, save for the sound of her sobs echoing off the walls like a failed performance in an empty theater. Natalie stayed crumpled on the floor, her cries deepening, her fingers clawing at the carpet, as if pain alone could reverse time. But nothing she did moved me. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I simply watched her unravel, like a distant observer in a museum of things I used to care about. It was strange, the peace I felt. Not joy, not satisfaction. Just the calm that arrives when every question has been answered, and every feeling has been buried beneath the rubble. She wanted a reaction, something to confirm she still mattered. A shout, a breakdown, maybe even a punch through the wall. But I gave her none of it. She looked up at me with bloodshot eyes and whispered, "I didn't mean to hurt you." Her voice cracked, soft and deliberate, the same tone she used when she wanted to be forgiven for smaller things, forgotten birthdays, little lies, overspending. But this wasn't one of those things, and she knew it. "I believe you," I said finally, voice even. "I don't think you meant to hurt me. You just didn't care if you did." That was the difference. Not cruelty, not hatred, just indifference. She'd risked it all because she assumed I'd always be there to pick up the pieces. Her mouth opened, but I raised a hand, not forcefully, not rudely, just enough to make her stop. "You've already said enough," I told her. "You don't need to explain anything else." She was shaking now, not from cold, but from something worse. The realization that she had run out of power. The one currency she had always traded in, emotion, was now worthless. I'd already grieved her betrayal, already dismantled the illusions. There was nothing left for her to manipulate. "I know I was wrong," she said, crawling closer, desperate now. "But can we talk? Really talk? Maybe we can fix this?" I tilted my head slightly, almost curious. Fix what? My trust? My dignity? My memory of who you used to be? None of those things are broken, Natalie. They're gone. The words hit her harder than any shouted insult ever could. And I knew it. That's why I said them the way I did. Quiet, measured, surgical. She started to cry again, this time louder, chest heaving like she thought volume could shake the foundations I'd already walked away from emotionally. But I didn't move. Instead, I walked to the foyer and picked up my keys, my jacket, my phone. She called my name once, twice. Grant. I turned to her, gaze steady. I hope someday you understand, I said, that tears don't undo patterns, they just expose them. Then I opened the door, stepped into the night, and closed it behind me. Not with anger, not with sadness. Just closure. The hallway outside their apartment was dim and quiet, the kind of silence that swallows everything. Grant stood there for a second longer, hand still on the doorknob, listening. Not for her voice. He was done listening to that, but for the sound of finality. The kind of silence that told him he'd truly left, even if his feet hadn't moved far yet. Inside, Natalie was sobbing again. He could hear her pacing now, probably hoping he'd come back through. That door! Say he didn't mean it. Say they could fix it. That's how it had always worked before. Emotion had always been her last line of defense, and it usually worked. But this time, she wasn't dealing with the man who used to come back. She was dealing with the one who finally stopped waiting. Grant took the elevator down, watching the numbers descend like markers counting down to the version of himself he used to be. By the time the doors opened to the lobby, he felt weightless. Not free, not exactly, but lighter, in the way you feel after putting down something you didn't realize had been crushing you. He walked out into the cool night, keys in hand, no real destination in mind. It didn't matter. Anywhere was better than the place where love had turned into theater, where forgiveness had been weaponized, and guilt came dressed in silk. For years, he'd convinced himself that patience was strength, that loving someone meant enduring their worst, with grace. But now, he understood something clearer. There's power in walking away without explanation, in choosing silence over spectacle. He got into his car, started the engine, and sat still for a moment. His phone buzzed beside him. Her name lit up the screen, then again, then a third time. He watched it ring, each vibration less urgent than the one before. When it finally stopped, he opened the window and let the night air wash over him. She texted. Long messages, probably apologies mixed with promises she hadn't earned. He didn't open them, didn't need to. He knew how the story would go. She'd cry, plead, recount the years they had shared as if memory alone could buy back trust. But trust, once shattered, isn't a puzzle. It's glass, sharp, dangerous, and impossible to piece back together without cutting yourself open. Grant put the car in gear. The tires rolled slowly at first, then picked up speed as he left the street behind. He didn't look back. Not once. Some moments demand a final glance, a whisper of nostalgia. This wasn't one of them. This wasn't an ending filled with regret. It was clean, surgical, done. Back in the apartment, Natalie's messages continued. Please don't shut me out. We can talk. You can't just leave me like this. But he had. And as her final message hit his phone, just tell me you're okay, Grant's screen lit up for a moment, then dimmed, delivered, never read. Natalie sat in the silence, surrounded by the life they had built, now stripped of all warmth. The couch still held his shape, the hallway still echoed the memory of his footsteps, but Grant was no longer part of the space. He had left nothing behind, not a note, not a slammed door, just emptiness. She stared at her phone, gripping it like it could anchor her to him. Her messages sat there, untouched, each one more desperate than the last. The little status below his name said, "Delivered." That was it. No read receipts, no typing dots, no hope, just digital proof of abandonment. For hours she sat there, replaying every word he'd said, every moment of the confrontation. She had cried with everything she had, thinking maybe if he saw how broken she was, it would remind him of how much she meant to him. But she had miscalculated. Again. He hadn't just let go tonight. He had let go long ago. And she never noticed. The apartment felt colder with each passing minute, like his absence was sucking the warmth from the walls. She walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge without purpose, staring blankly at the rows of untouched food. Leftovers he would never eat. Groceries they bought together now felt like museum artifacts from a relationship that no longer existed. She returned to the couch, picked up her phone again, and opened their old text thread. Hundreds of memories lived there, conversations that once made her laugh, late-night I love yous, and silly inside jokes no one else would understand. She scrolled through them slowly, as if touching them could bring him back. But every swipe only reminded her how far away he'd gone. Eventually, she typed one last message. "Please, can we just talk one more time? Just once. I'm not asking you to come back. I just need to know you're okay." She hit send and stared at the screen. Delivered. She waited, willing that little bubble to change, wishing for something, anything, that might prove she still existed in his world. But nothing came. Outside, the night deepened. Grant was somewhere beyond her reach now, driving through unfamiliar streets, surrounded by strangers who didn't know her name, breathing air that didn't belong to them anymore. He wasn't angry. That's what haunted her the most. He wasn't storming off or burning bridges. He was simply done. And for the first time, Natalie realized there would be no second chance. She couldn't cry her way back in. She couldn't reverse time or twist his silence into sympathy. Grant Ellis had reached a level of peace she couldn't touch. And that was the real punishment. Because now she was left alone with the one thing she had never feared until it was too late. A man who no longer felt anything for her. Not love, not hate, nothing at all.